Right, well, we are in Shinrata Desra. As you can see, I am in the cockpit of my Federal Assault ship, which I have docked here. So I am speaking to you from within the ISV Friedrich Engels. Alright, well, while I'm here, is a good place to answer the next question, which is an extremely predictable question. What is the best ship in the game? Now, well, let's cut to the chase. There isn't a right answer for this. This is one of those questions where you could ask 10 people and you'll get 10 different answers. I mean, for a start, it depends on the role that you want. But most of the people who ask this question have like an all-rounder role in mind. I mean, if you wanted you wanted to know what was the best ship for cargo, it is clearly the Imperial Cutter, because it carries vastly more cargo than any other ship in the game so far. If you want an exploration ship, then really you've got a choice of three. You've got the Anaconda if you want to outfit it particularly for exploration. Personally, I'm not so keen on it because it means you do have to make quite a lot of compromises regarding power supply and things like that, and it's frankly it's more effort than I can be bothered with. You got the Asp Explorer, and if your budget can't stretch to anything particularly impressive, then you've got the Diamondback Explorer, which, to be honest, I keep forgetting about. In the last video, when I was saying about good first destinations for exploring, I forgot to say that the Diamondback Explorer is also quite capable of visiting NGC 7822. So that's another ship you could use to go there. Anyway, so that leaves then best combat ship and best all-rounder. Well, there are so many different answers to both of those. I'll jump straight to the all-rounder, but for the majority of this vid, everything that I say regarding all-rounder probably applies to my opinion when it comes to combat specific as well. But I mean, the best ship is entirely a personal preference. It's down to how you actually play the game. If you have the ability to, you know, pilot the ship well, you could get away with a lighter vessel, and you know, if you're in combat, for example, you could use the speed and agility to avoid taking hits, rather than the less subtle approach of just having the strongest shields possible and the best armour, so that you have to take an awful lot of hits before you are in any sort of bother. If you're not so great at combat, or you just don't rate your own combat skills, then the latter of those two options is probably the better one for you. You know, get yourself a ship that can take the punishment, so that then if you are going to be taking hits, you can get away with it for longer. Of course, the larger the ship, the more firepower that you have, so there's always that way of looking at it. And then of course you also have the greater flexibility as far as what internal modules you can use and how many of them you can use and stuff like that. But again, I mean, I know some players who have essentially specialised in the smaller ships. I know one who I would probably say that the ship that he is best in is this one, the Sidewinder that you start off in, and he's been able to take out Anacondas in a Sidewinder. So, you know, if you're that good, then pretty much any ship you choose is likely to be the best one. Well, with a couple of very obvious exceptions. In fact, the Sidewinder, a lot of people instantly dismiss it, but I mean, it is an all-rounder. It's not a ship that's designed with just one particular role in mind. Now, okay, granted, it doesn't exactly excel in any of its roles if you set it up for an all-rounder, but it can do them. You know, it can do combat, like I say, in the hands of the right player. You can take out anacondas with it. So although it's hard points, it only has 2 small hard points there. Don't look all that impressive. You do have the capability. The shields are not that impressive, but again, it has the manoeuvrability. You can try to avoid taking hits if you're that good a pilot. Its optional internals aren't, you know, you haven't got a vast amount of choice, but I mean, you can set it up to be a cargo ship, you can set it up to be, you know, I suppose you could set it up to be an explorer. You haven't got the greatest of jump ranges, but you can set it up to be an explorer. Indeed, what's his name? Commander Phoenix D-Fire, who is Colin something or other in YouTube, does the top shift videos. He's currently doing a series where he is doing exploration in a Sidewinder. He's heading to Colonia in one. Personally, I think it is an almighty test of patience, because he is having to do something in the region of about 85 jumps for each 1,000 light years. And of course, he then has to do 22,000 light years to get there. Anyway, so, you know, don't think that the ship you start off in is a useless heap of shit. It's not. The next ship that I would say does the job of an all-rounder would be the Cobra Mark III. Everything else between the Sidewinder and this is a bit more role specific. But I mean, the Cobra Mark III is basically a very souped up Sidewinder. It can do a bit of everything, but it does it a lot better than a Sidewinder does. So if you want to stick to you know, all-rounders but don't want a large ship, Cobra Mark III is a fine choice. Some people say that the Diamondback, not so much the Scout, but the Diamondback Explorer here is also a pretty good choice for an all-rounder. It doesn't show here, but its hard points, it has a large hard point, which for a ship of its size is quite handy. So it is capable of dealing out punishment in combat. It does have, you know, the chance to fit some sort of cargo carrying capacity to it, and obviously it has the jump range. So yeah, I suppose as an all-rounder it has the potential, shall we say. Now the next all-rounder, this is when we start getting into the ships that I consider to be much better. Asp Explorer is a great ship as an all-rounder. This does pretty well in any role, whether it is combat, whether it's obviously exploration, whether it's cargo runs. Even as a mining ship it can do quite well. So it's hard to argue against the Asp Explorer. It's also pretty manoeuvrable, so it does quite a bit. I am quite a fan of the Imperial Clipper. I think, again, for an all-rounder, it's not bad at all. It's quite capable at combat, for sure. It's an excellent combat ship. You can outfit it to carry something in the region of 192 tons of cargo, which means it carries more cargo than a Type 6 and I think even a Type 7. It can have some pretty strong shields. It's got here a 6E, but I'm sure it can have a Class 7 shield fitted to it. That will obviously have quite an impact on your cargo capacity. But, you know, you make your choice there. Its jump range is not fantastic. Yeah, at stock, it's just under 9 light years. With the A-rated frameshift drive, yeah, it uses a Class 5. But with the A-rated one and outfitted as an all-rounder, you're probably looking at around 17 or 18, maybe a little bit more. But if you then take it to one of the engineers who can modify the frameshift drive and extend the range, you can get this into well into the 20s. I think you can get it up to as much as 26, which is pretty bloody good, especially as this is a ship with it is classed as a large ship. It needs a large size landing pad. The drawback is that obviously it can't land at outposts. Whether or not you consider that important, again, that's a personal preference. For me, I really couldn't give a monkey's, you know, if I can't land on at an outpost, then I couldn't give a toss. So that's not a consideration for me. But there are plenty of other players who will consider that and think of it as being important. So they will rule out this ship because it can't land on any of those outposts. The next all-rounder, well, what can I say? I mean, the Python is arguably the best all-rounder in the game. It can carry it can't carry as much as 300. I think it can carry something in the region of like 260 tons of cargo, which is a decent amount. Certainly more than the Type 6 or Type 7. It has extremely powerful weapons. It has, I think, 3 large and 2 medium hard points. So, yeah, the firepower is immense. You can fit some extremely strong shields to it. It has a 6E, but I think, again, you can fit a Class 7, I think. Actually, now thinking about it, no, it is only a 6A, but nevertheless, the Class 6A shield generator on a Python, that's not, you know, not bad. The only drawback with the Python is that its jump range is not great. It's only got a Class 5 frameshift drive, so even with an A class frameshift drive, your jump range is not going to go beyond the teens. And I think if you modify it with engineer mods, you might just sort of get it into the low 20s, but that's as good as it's going to go. Frameshift drive is its Achilles heel. But I mean, if you don't care too much about jump range, then this probably is the all-rounder that the majority would say is the best in the game. Then you get to, well, what I consider the all-rounder, the Anaconda. Now obviously this is far too big to land at an outpost, but aside from that, there is nothing that it cannot do, and well, it just does everything extremely well. Its firepower is immense. Its maneuverability for its size is pretty bloody impressive, actually. I mean, you would think a ship this size, you know, just can't cut it. No, its manoeuvrability is extremely good for say for its size. Before anyone says, "Oh no, it's not that impressive." You can easily carry 400 tons of cargo or more. Its shields, I think this can carry a class 8? No, it is still a 7, yeah. But nevertheless, you can fit a class 7 shield generator, so you can certainly take the punishment. Its jump range is extremely good because it has a class 6 frameshift drive. If you want to outfit it for exploration, which means, you know, fitting something like, say, only a class 4 power plant and class 4 or 5 thrusters, you know, really going low on all of these, and then derate everything, it is possible to get over 60 light years jump range, especially when you then modify the frameshift drive with an engineer. I mean, the Anaconda, even though I don't use one in the game, or at least not at the moment, I'm bound to get another one fairly soon. I've had several during my time playing this. Yeah, I think that is probably the all-rounder. The ship that I used, the Imperial Cutter, a lot of people straight away dismiss it, largely because its manoeuvrability when unmodded, and particularly if it's not been upgraded, is not that good. But then this ship is absolutely bloody enormous, so, you know, you got to be a bit realistic as far as its manoeuvrability. But you can fit a class 8 shield generator. In fact, why don't I just show you the loadout in my one. I mean, you've all seen the loadout. If you're a regular viewer of my videos, you'll have all seen the loadout. But if you're not, then, well, you'll see it now. So, I mean, in terms of hard points, it doesn't have any small hard points, which means that while technically the Federal Corvette has greater firepower, because the Federal Corvette has 2 huge hard points, the Corvette also has 2 small hard points, which are just a complete waste of time. Now, the Cutter doesn't have any small hard points at all. So it has 4 medium hard points, 2 large hard points, and 1 huge hard point. So you can fit a huge amount of firepower on it. As far as its utility mounts go, it has 8 of them, the same number as the Corvette and the Anaconda. You really don't need more than 8. As far as its core internals, so you can have class 8 power plant, so power really isn't an issue with a class 8 power plant there. Class 8 thrusters, so the most powerful thrusters in the game, but the ship really does need it. Even with 8A thrusters, its manoeuvrability is not fantastic, but once you have modified the thrusters, as I have the grade 5 dirty drive tuning, you can then seriously improve the manoeuvrability, and it actually does become pretty good for such a huge bloody ship. So class 7 frameshift drive, which means that unladen, mine's obviously been modified, just about everything on my ship has been modified. I'm getting a jump range of over 25 light years, which, like I say, for a ship this size, that's pretty impressive. Life support, well, every ship has that. 7A power distributor, which isn't as good as the Corvette. The Corvette has a class 8. but that is the only ship that has a better power distributor than the cutter. So you can, blast away in combat pretty well, unless you've gone really mad with your weapons loadout. You should have no problems, being able to keep your guns blazing in any combat situation. And it does have a military compartment as well. So, so does the Corvette. I don't think the Anaconda does though, so that's something else to consider here. And then the optional internals, so you have two Class 8 optional internals, so you can fit the most powerful shield generator in the game and still have room for the largest single cargo rack. Or if you really want to, you could fit Class 8 shield cell banks, but I don't bother because the heat output is too high. So after the two Class 8s, you then have three Class 6s, two Class 5s, one Class 4 and one Class 3. So there are no tiny Class 2 or 1s. That's for the planetary approach suite, so that doesn't really count. So although I wouldn't really class this as an all-rounder, because it does have two drawbacks, so you can't land on outposts if you consider that important. And also, of course, you've got to have the right Imperial rank. You must be at least a Duke with the Empire before you can buy this. And then there is the small matter of how much it costs, which is, from Shinrata, 183 million. So it's bloody expensive, but you get what you pay for. Like I say, if you want to outfit it as a cargo ship, this thing will carry over 790 tons, which is just vastly more than any other ship in the game. So I consider the Imperial Cutter to be the best ship in the game, but you'll find a hell of a lot of people who will say no, it isn't. But as far as the best all-rounder in the game, I would say it's between the Anaconda and the Python, but I think the Anaconda, actually more than shades here, the Anaconda is a much better ship than the Python. That's not to say the Python's crap. I mean, if the Python is the best ship that you can afford, then, grab it. It's much better than pretty much any of the other ships, again, in my opinion, before it. It's just that the Anaconda is so much better than this. Problem is, the Anaconda is more than double the price. Anaconda from Shinrata is a shade under 129 million. By the time you've fully upgraded it and outfitted it, it's over $500 million. So yeah, it's not a cheap ship by any means. Actually, one thing to keep in mind with the Python is that although you can fit a Class 7 power plant, when I had the Python I never did. I had a 6A power plant and that was plenty for it. So you can save yourself some credits by getting a cheaper power plant that is still just as good, and it obviously means that your mass is lower and your heat output is even lower. Heat output is very low for this kind of ship, which means you may get away with some more, shall we say, hot running weapons. So, well, there you are then. Best ship in the game. So it's all entirely my opinion. You will find loads of people who will disagree, but then those who asked me weren't interested in me giving the opinions of others. They just wanted mine, so that's mine. Imperial Cutter, best ship in the game for me. Right, next question. I have a feeling you're all going to know what that one's going to be.